In today's episode, we are going to be talking about what might be one of the most compelling investments, I think, really in the world right now. And that's because the billionaire investor, Eric Sprott, and his company are getting involved in a major way. Now, we all see what happens in gold and silver when Sprott gets involved. And now in Q3, they're going to be ready with their uranium trust that is going to be buying pounds off the market, essentially being the controller of the spot price of uranium, which is going to have tremendous effects on the junior mining stocks in the uranium industry. We've got that going. We've got Bill Gates and Warren Buffett starting to get involved. We had the US Defense Secretary saying recently that uranium is an absolute no-brainer, essential part of the future. And this investment is getting more and more and more and more attractive. And I think it's setting up for being one of those few things right now in this time window. It always works in reverse, right? All the suits, all the big money gets in first, then they go pump it, and then all the retail chases whatever the suits say. This is one of those rare opportunities where every supply and demand deficit, all these incredible fundamentals are set up right now. And you can see where all the big money is about to get in. And that's Q3 when Sprott's Uranium Trust is trading on the New York Stock Exchange. But there's this window of time. And so I like to give an update to everyone with Justin from Uranium Insider. It is the best paid uranium newsletter that is out there. I'm a paying member myself, and breaking down the entire uranium thesis, the nuclear market, and the very compelling stocks for retail investors to get involved in. He breaks that all down. I am a paying member. The link for you to check that out is right there down below in the description and pinned to the comments right there down below. And the reason this is so compelling is there's only 64, 65 stocks in the uranium sector. So if you pick the right things, there's some incredible opportunities for some great upside. And so the link to Uranium Insider is right there down below. Like I said, I highly suggest that I'm involved in it. So Justin, tell us what is going on in this uranium market.
Hey Jake, always good to talk with you, man. So what is going on right now is I actually feel like in this moment I'm getting a bit nostalgic of the old days in uranium because we have the drumbeat of positive fundamentals just unrelenting, and we have stocks selling off a bit right now. And really what that is a sector that was getting a little bit overbought, and all it really needed was some excuse to sell off a little bit. But absolutely, we are still 1,000% in a bull market, and this is just another perfect little retest of that 50-day moving average that most of these stocks are now touching or hovering around right now. So it's a really unique opportunity for, especially for retail, to get into this extremely small sector while it is still extremely small, as we have an unbelievable catalyst right around the corner. I mean, there's 100 catalysts around the corner, but there's one in particular, which is what you mentioned, Sprott taking over and creating the Sprott Physical Uranium Trust, effectively taking over management of Uranium Participation Corporation. As you mentioned, that's set to happen in Q3, that the deal will be done in Q3. They will be seeking that New York Stock Exchange listing. They will be seeking an ATM finance vehicle, which is an at-the-market financing. So they will be able to raise funds at will and come in and basically create a consistent bid in the spot market. This is something we've never seen before, and it's happening in the next few months. And the setup is it's bullish beyond belief. And now we have this fantastic thing coming right around the corner. And we have some nice entries presenting themselves here as well. So it's just really an overall exciting time to be in uranium.
Okay, so let's break this down a little bit more. There is very few markets in the entire world where you can so easily read the supply and demand fundamentals. And there's very few markets in the world where essentially big money can basically take control of the set price of the asset. Now we know that Sprott's a huge player in gold and silver. They have their silver trust, which is one of the largest acquirers of silver in the world. But the uranium market, the spot market, is so illiquid. Give us an idea of the effects that this is really going to have and why there's such a sense of urgency in this market right now.
Sure. I think illiquid is a really great way to describe the spot market. It deals in physical pounds. There aren't futures. There's no paper trading, so there's not a whole lot of manipulation in that way. It's literally the pounds that are available, and they're being purchased by either traders or end users. Primarily utilities. In some cases, Cameco, a producing company that's been buying off of the spot market to fulfill their contracts because they've had MacArthur River down for a number of years. But the what we have is primary production into the spot market is approximately 15 million pounds a year. Maybe a few million above or below that, but right in that ballpark. And I'm talking primary production. I'm not talking about companies or traders or inventory holders potentially selling into the spot market. I'm talking about pounds coming out of the ground that end up going into the spot market. And that's
Understood.
Primarily coming from BHP's Olympic Dam in Australia as a byproduct essentially of gold and copper production. Then we have Uzbekistan that sells into the spot market. They also sell to a number of traders who then sell into the spot market. Uranium One, Orano sell a little bit into the spot market as well. But overall, let's call it 15 million pounds a year primary production. Nothing secondary. That's no underfeeding, nothing like that that's coming in. What we could be seeing with the new Sprott vehicle, we could be seeing 1 to, let's say, 3 million pounds per month of demand coming from Sprott alone. So we could very easily see this new entity being managed by Sprott, being driven by financial players, it's going to be a highly liquid, very attractive vehicle on the New York Stock Exchange that will be something that institutions can buy with a lot of security, let's say, because of the liquidity, that they know that those purchases of this new vehicle will directly affect that spot, the spot market itself, the underlying spot price. So really what's happening and has been happening has been a positioning in the equities. And so that's, if you look at like weekly charts of the uranium stocks and you zoom out, you're going to see greatly increased volumes beginning in December and carrying throughout. A couple of dips here and there, but overall the volumes coming into these stocks have been massive, not to mention over $1 billion coming into private placements and bought deals since January. So we have what we believe is what we're seeing is institutions are positioning in these stocks. And when Sprott takes over UPC, then they will start hammering that stock, driving up the spot market, and therefore lifting their underlying equity holdings as well. And so we're kind of in the eye of the storm right now. The outside of the storm, the first half of that storm, I would say, was all of the money flow coming into the sector that drove the stocks up, 2x, sometimes even 3x since December in some of these moves, maybe even more. And things are kind of calm right now, even though the fundamentals are stacking up, where the stocks are taking a bit of a rest, the volumes are down. On the other side of that eye is the actual deal being done of Sprott taking over UPC and hitting the spot market. We're sitting right around $32.50 a pound right now spot. It's just barely under the long-term price. I think that we're going to breach the long-term price once Sprott starts hitting the spot market. I think we could see $40 to $45 a pound spot uranium by December. I've been very conservative with my spot market price forecast over the years. And I think that this number actually is very reasonable and very doable by the end of the year. So that's less than 6 months to get us up 50% above where we're at now in spot price.
What does $40 to $45 move by the end of the year do to, especially to junior mining uranium stocks?
Oh, the juniors will see multiples if we get that kind of move. Yeah. Juniors will see multiples. I think even the large caps, we could see potentially a 50 to 100% move in some of the large caps with that kind of move. And we could see multiples on the juniors over the course of 6 months. And that's just a setup, for 2022. And, this is the only thing that really can put a hole in this thesis is the broad market, but that's not really changing the thesis for uranium. That's just saying, oh, the broad market could sell off between now and the end of this bull market. And I believe that it will. I think we will see a correction, but how high will we be between now and then? Who knows? I really think it's intelligent to at least mostly position before Sprott actually starts purchasing. So I would say we have at most a few months ahead of us for that.
Now, what are the effect? There's Yellow Cake has a lot of money to go around. I was reading to you John Quake's tweet that he sent out the other day. Here's what it says. Physical uranium fund Yellow Cake reports that it successfully raised 88 million, giving them a total of 110 million in US cash for further U308 purchases. So that's a lot of money, right? And do you anticipate this money rushing in to buy before Sprott does? And what type of effect could that have from these types of companies that are still looking to buy more? You would think they would want to do it before Sprott comes in and effectively buys everything that exists.
Oh, 100%. I mean, Yellow Cake even used that language when they announced this raise.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, is that they're expecting higher prices. I mean, they didn't say Sprott specifically by name, but that they're expecting higher prices soon and an increasingly tight spot market and wanting to purchase ahead of that. With Yellow Cake specifically, some of that money raised is going to be buying pounds directly from Kazatomprom, which said they would supply 1 to 2 million. But we're looking at about 3 million pounds worth that they'll be able to buy. So there'll be 1.5 million pounds from the spot market. I believe UPC might still have a bit to buy. I think Cameco still has some to buy. So there are some players, not to mention traders, that are likely playing some arbitrage ahead of this move as well. So yeah, the market is thin. We have some entities looking to buy prior to Sprott, and then the on the financial side, on the investing side of things, the market knows that Sprott is coming. And we've had just this little bit of sell-off has been pushed by a story of a nuclear power plant in, I think it's pronounced Taishan in China. It's a French design, and there were reports of increased gas at the plant that was indicative of a small leak in the fuel rods, and the market kind of panicked, sold off. But interestingly, the day that the market panicked sold was the highest all-time daily volume for URA in the history of that vehicle. So retail panic sold and institution picked up, was there to pick up the pieces. So we saw big money coming in. They actually increased their share count that day on that sell-off.
Oh, wow.
It was 9 or 10% sell-off that day. So the money was there to pick up where the sellers were leaving. And I think that it was an overreaction from what we can tell. There was some really great content. There's a gentleman on Twitter named Mark Nelson. I don't have his handle off the top of my head. He really understands very well what's happening at this power plant, as well as we can, considering it's in China. But from what it looks like, it was an overreaction, and it's something that is very common for small leaks to happen within the fuel rods without actually causing a problem with the plant or excess radiation at the plant or the surrounding areas. So all things forging ahead for uranium.
Yeah, it was funny to watch that, because then it's reported there's no leak. You find out all the big money was buying the whole thing, and it almost just looks like it's just another thing that pulls more of the retail people out of the market right before something incredible is happening. And we've heard a lot about squeezes, right? There's a GameStop squeeze. There's a silver squeeze. Sprott's getting involved because they're going to squeeze the uranium market. They're not getting involved for fun. They're not getting involved because they're looking for something to do. They see black and white. This is not a hard market to squeeze. And there just quite simply aren't enough uranium stocks going out and around. And so I want to have you on, every couple of weeks, because sometimes people say, well, I don't care about uranium. I mean, this is just such a black and white, incredible opportunity. And I'm really just trying to do as much service to people as I can, because there's an incredible opportunity. I am a paying member, as I said, to Uranium Insider. I suggest you join as well. It's not just me that thinks this is a good opportunity. There's also some very big players now. We've got, of course, Sprott. We've got Bill Gates getting involved. We've got Warren Buffett getting involved. We've had the U.S. Defense Secretary say point blank, uranium is the future, essentially. So for everyone listening, right there down below is a link to join Uranium Insider. I highly recommend that you do that. And I don't think this is an opportunity that you want to miss. And I do think this is very time sensitive. Now, for someone that hears, they're familiar with Sprott, they hear about what you said, they say, wow, that looks compelling. Maybe I should, be really looking at uranium. Now, paint us some of the macro from some of the other important signs of people getting involved. You talked about Warren Buffett and Bill Gates. We talked about the U.S. Defense Secretary. Give us an idea of what that means to you as someone who's been investing in uranium and educating the public on uranium for a while when you see the likes of Warren Buffett, getting involved.
Well, it means a lot, to be honest. This is something that I've been looking into for years and years, and it really feels good to be supported with similar minds, I would say, that are now realizing the incredible use case for nuclear energy. And on top of that, having really bright investors in the space come along and realize the opportunity in the investment side. So we have, the bullish investment case on one side, and we have the bullish outlook for nuclear energy on the other side, and they're just holding hands, and it's wonderful. On the investing side, we have people like Larry McDonald from the Bear Traps Report, who's very, very sharp, very well respected. And he really kind of set this thing off in December in a big way when they reported on uranium and the opportunity there. We have Huhn talking about uranium and talking about nuclear energy. Chamath just mentioned it the other day, and he's a multi-billionaire Silicon Valley finance guy who's just kind of the light bulb just went on for him last week, where he's saying, oh, nuclear, actually, it really is actually safe. It really is the answer to all of these problems with producing carbon-free energy. So that was a big, whether or not you like Chamath, it's a really big vouch for nuclear, and to have somebody mention that. And then, like you mentioned, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, so they've sort of come together. Bill Gates, the founder and chairman of TerraPower, which is an advanced nuclear technology company. Warren Buffett as, the primary owner of Pacific Corp, another energy company. They announced a few weeks back that they would be in agreement with the governor of Wyoming to build the first TerraPower Natrium advanced nuclear small reactor at a shuttered coal power plant site in Wyoming. So that's really exciting. The technology of this thing is really, really cool. I've been looking into it more, and it's really quite exciting. So a typical reactor, let's say like the AP1000 or 1000 megawatts, these are being built across China right now. This Natrium reactor will be 345 megawatts, but it has a molten salt energy storage capacity that will allow it to cycle up to 500 megawatts for up to 5 hours and cycle back down. That's one of the big drawbacks in nuclear, is that the traditional larger nuclear power plants have difficulty cycling up and down with the demands of the grid. And now we're having, increasing demands, not only just with an increasing population and electrification of more and more, whether that's power tools, whether that's your vehicle, whether that's electric heat, electric cooking, and we're going in that direction. And so the cycling up and down of the grid is a problem for nuclear. Well, this is a really big development, and this thing is exciting. To have that little excess capacity to allow it to cycle up and down is very, very cool. And so they actually just announced today that they'll be seeking permits for this in March 2023 to start construction, with operating license ideally happening by March 2026. So we're talking less than 5 years from now, potentially, that this could be up and running in Wyoming at a shuttered coal power plant site. Very cool, and on a much faster time frame than anybody's really expecting for these things.
So, speaking about that, with Chamath, I'm going to right now, for those that didn't hear it in the editing, I'm going to have the clip of that play right now.
There is a massive play right now going on in the uranium market. It was brought to my attention. I was like, let me just go look at this. I don't know anything about this, but I just was curious about what's going on. And effectively what it is, there was a fund that was trying to basically corner uranium and drive the price up. And the entire thing about uranium, which was interesting, is, okay, what is it used for? It's used for nuclear reactors. Well, then you spend a little time understanding nuclear reactors, and I was shocked to learn how clean, how safe, how reliable, How
Amazing.
repeatable? I had all these stupid cobwebs in my head based on a random couple of press releases, 3 Mile Island, Fukushima, etc. So when I cleared all of that bias away and I learned about it, then I'm like, why aren't nuclear reactors everywhere? Because it is the fastest way for us to get to carbon neutral. And then I find out the same people who want carbon neutral, i.e. Greenpeace, is one of the largest advocates against nuclear. And I thought, how do we not, again, be in a position to actually hold two thoughts that are slightly divergent at the same time? We want nuclear energy because it actually supports something that's even more important to the sustainable ecosystem that Greenpeace is there to protect in the first place.
So as you can see here, you're seeing across the board, billionaire investor, most respected natural resource in the world, Sprott, Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, Chamath. He's a hated and loved person, but what you can't deny is this a person that has access to huge amount of funds. And we've talked about ESG and then all this type of this money flowing into it. This is a person that can easily put together hundreds of millions of dollars at 0% interest that is going into, as you said, a market that has very small market cap. It's very illiquid. And I'm trying to scream in these videos because it's still such an unknown. We got to be one of the largest channels that's talking about investing in uranium, maybe the largest. And some people they want to listen to gold on our channel. But I just think this opportunity is so incredible. And then you couple it off with the Miami mayor who is trying to woo the Bitcoin mining companies that are starting to shut down a lot in China and other places because they're doing it from dirty coal. Elon Musk said that they'll reinstate Bitcoin as a purchase medium on Teslas once it gets to 50% clean energy. The most obvious way to do that, as evidenced by the Miami politician now effectively promoting to bring Bitcoin mining and using nuclear off of it. What did you think about that?
I thought that was really interesting. A pretty bold move, again, by a Florida politician, which I'm loving seeing that. Yeah, I think that there's definitely, especially from Elon Musk's influence, there's definitely more and more awareness of the environmental impact of Bitcoin mining, of cryptocurrency mining in general, but Bitcoin obviously is the big boy. So to the extent that mining can be done with clean energy, it clearly is great for the use case and the acceptance of Bitcoin, but there's this huge following of Bitcoin that can see a statement like that and come to a realization that, oh, well, nuclear fits that bill. It's just another piece coming together with this thing where nuclear, and it's something you can feel good about investing in too, because it actually is the answer if you assume that the problem is carbon emissions. It really, really is. I mean, it's the safest form of energy production that's ever been conceived. And it's the realization of that is growing on a global scale, which is just an unbelievable foundation for the investment case, which even if you just look at the numbers of the supply and demand disjunct for the commodity itself in the tiny sector, $27 billion for 65 companies, institutions can only buy a half dozen of those based on market cap and liquidity requirements. So you have just a really fantastic case for investment supported by this unbelievable fundamental case of growing acceptance and support for nuclear. It's really quite something.
What did seeing Chamath when he came out like that, you've kind of thrown out the hypothesis that some of these bigger time mainstream guys that have access to basically infinite capital could step in. And to me, that was the first thing that I thought when I heard that. I'm like, oh, that's a guy, regardless of what people's opinion is on him. I mean, this is an individual that basically has access to infinite capital at 0% interest, essentially free money. And he says, quote, there is a big play to be made in uranium right now. And he even references, he doesn't say Sprott, but he said there's a billionaire getting involved that is essentially looking to, I forget his exact words, but essentially looking to corner the market. So, I mean, when you see that, I would think your light bulbs are going off and saying, "Oh wow, we only need one or two of these guys to realize that," right?
Yeah, it's the first thing I thought actually not only was the unbelievable access to capital that somebody like himself has, but also the social influence. You know, he has 1 million followers on Twitter alone. And so he has huge influence and he has huge access to capital. And I think that's the fact that somebody like him is just now coming to this realization as well, sort of goes to show you that even though in the small world of Twitter, Uranium, you know, Uranium Twitter, where we all kind of know each other and we talk on a daily basis about these things, it's kind of an echo chamber. And we really feel like, oh, well, it's not a contrarian play anymore. You know, we're already way up off the bottom, et cetera, et cetera. It's like, well, man, that might be the case. But at the same time, people like Chamath are just right now figuring this out, you know, when it's been an obvious thing for years. And while it's not a contrarian trade in that not everybody hates it anymore, which is how it was, you know, 3 years ago. You were swimming upstream all the time. Now it's a momentum play, and you have the Chamaths of the world, the Larry McDonalds of the world, the Bill Gates of the world. They're behind this, and it's still only a $27 billion market cap. I mean, that's the market cap of Best Buy. This is a tiny sector. And when funds flow into the sector, they have not many options to purchase. And when they start purchasing, as they have already, and we're seeing a slowdown of that at the moment, like I said, the eye of the storm. But when real money really starts coming into this thing, I mean, just watch out. There's not many things to buy, and they will all go up. I mean, you have to, while you can take a shotgun approach, if you're smart about what you're purchasing, you can outperform the market by 2 to 3x, which is what we're doing. And which is what we recommend people do as well. Do your due diligence. And if you don't want to, go ahead and buy that URNM ETF. It's a good ETF, but you can outperform the market if you pick a few choice companies.
So obviously very compelling for someone listening that says, you know, I need to get my feet wet in this. As I've mentioned, Uranium Insider, I'm a paying newsletter too. We'll have the link to that right there down below in the description and comments. But let us know a bit about why someone should consider Uranium Insider and what to expect.
We're all over this market. So we live, eat, and breathe this every single day. And it's a very complicated market. And one good thing I'd like to highlight is that earlier this week, I think this actually was Friday, when the stocks were selling off due to that news in China, and retail is panic selling. If you don't know what's going on in this market, you will get shaken out. And we sent out a bulletin a couple of hours after that story broke and said, yeah, don't worry about this. This is a buying opportunity to our members. So our members received that bulletin in real time, and that presented great entries for people that were still adding. And we've always recommended buying in tranches. You know, this is what we tell our members is, you know, you don't want to go all in because the market is so volatile just on one single day. Just go all in with all of your available funds that you want to put into the sector. You want to space it out. And this, what's happening right now is a perfect reason for that. So you have a small team of hyper focused on uranium folks that are at your back. That's kind of the number one. Number two is you get to see what we're buying, and we share with you our recommendations for companies. So we do the due diligence on these companies in the space, and we come up with what we feel are the best companies in the space to ride this bull market. So to put that simply, we provide alpha. We try to help you as a retail investor choose the best vehicles to beat the market. So you don't have to just blindly buy the ETF and avoid understanding the sector, because you want to understand the sector. And in our monthly newsletters, we go through all of the macro very in depth, and we distill it down into what is actionable for investors. That's what's most important, is taking all of this information that's constantly swirling around and bringing it to a point where, what does this mean to you as an investor? Should you be buying? Should you be selling? That's what Uranium Insider provides.
Man, well, for one, I cannot wait until Sprott Uranium Trust is listed in Q3 on the New York Stock Exchange. We've been talking about fireworks coming. It's obvious that they are coming. And, I know at least for one, I've heard of the last legendary bull market many times, and I'm looking forward to the opportunities that present in this. And for those that are interested, highly recommend joining Uranium Insider at risk of sounding like a broken record. Link is right there down below. Make sure you hit the like button on today's video. If there's anything you want covered in the uranium and nuclear markets that we've missed, every couple of weeks, we do an update on everything that's happening. So if you give us a comment right there down below, let us know what your questions are, things you'd like to see Justin address. Give us a comment down below that says "Go Uranium, Go" right there down below. If we get over 100 comments, it moves the spot price. So comment down below, "Go Uranium, Go." Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe on either side. Link to join Uranium newsletter is pinned to the comments and in the description. Thank you for joining us today, Justin.
It's my pleasure. Let's do it again, Jake.